Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you all the techniques that I use to make sure that my motion graphics and animations look smooth inside of Davinci Resolve. If you've been trying to work with some motion graphics or animations in Resolve, but your results have been a little bit less than optimal, maybe they're looking robotic or choppy or just not good, these techniques will help you to know why that's happening and how to fix it and make them look better. So without any further ado, let's jump into the video. Here we are inside of Resolve, and we're gonna go ahead and right off the bat jump right into Fusion. So we're gonna grab our effects. If you don't see this window here, it's going to be effects library. Just make sure that's toggled on. Come into effects there, and then grab a Fusion composition, bring it out. And once we have our Fusion composition selected, we're gonna go ahead and jump on into Fusion. You'll see that we only have a media out. That's our starting point. So for this, I'm gonna make a text like you saw in the intro, where it comes in from the side and then stays for a second and then leaves. And we're gonna do our best to make that look as smooth as possible. And the first thing we're gonna want is a text node. So either hit Shift Spacebar and then type in text, or go ahead and just click on this text node button right there. Then we're going to drag that to our media out, and then we're going to type text right in there. Boom. We're going to make it a little bigger, easier to see. And then we're going to go ahead and pop into our layout section here, the little plus next to the page. I don't know what that's supposed to look like, but that's layout. Then we're going to go ahead and put a keyframe on our center. And then we're going to skip on over into the transform window, and we're going to go into Shear, and we're going to keyframe our center shear as well. If you're unfamiliar with Shear, it just does this. Whoop, whoop. And we're going to use that to make it look like our text is moving really fast and part of it can't keep up, like its feet are getting ahead of the top half of its body. So we're going to go ahead and zoom out in this window by holding Control and scrolling. And we're going to start this way over here, off the screen completely. And we're going to go ahead and start our shear, like hold back, just like that. And then we're going to move forward, we'll say 8 frames. And then we're going to go ahead and slide this back to the middle, but a little bit too far. Oftentimes, if you're working with your motion graphics, whether it's text or an animation, anything really, if you make it go a little bit past where you want it to end up and then snap back, that tends to help it look a little bit more natural, because not many things can be moving at a high speed and then just smack into something and not move at all. So we're going to go ahead and pass that a little bit, and then we're going to make a new keyframe right here because we want that. And then we're going to move forward 2 frames, and we're going to shear the other way while it snaps back to the middle. And then once it is there, we're going to go ahead and stand it right back up. Just like that. And now if we watch this play, whoop, we're missing that shear. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click on our text again so that we have our controls back up. Go back a couple of keyframes by using these arrows here. And then for this one, we go ahead and move it over, and our shear is going to go the other way. And then on our next one, it should be snapped back. So we'll play that again. Too far. So if we watch that slowly, see our text stretches out a bit too far there. So I'm going to bring it in a little bit and check that out again. And a lot of this is going to be you going back and forth, seeing what looks good and what doesn't, and just working on it until you get to a spot where you like what you're working with. So if we go again, I kind of want that to bounce back a little bit, like it's more elastic. So when we get here, we're going to shear it the other way just a touch. And then in the next frame, we're going to go back to 0. So that's going to go like that and then bounce back. That looks pretty good, honestly. And then what we're going to do to make that look even better on our zoomy text is go up here to where it says spline. We're going to click on that, and then we're going to get this spline window popped up. In here is where the magic really happens. This is an awesome tool that Davinci provides us. So we're going to go onto our shear first, and this is going to control our shear. So if we zoom in a bit, we can see our text come in, and you can see all of the keyframes that we've made on that line right there. So if we grab and we make one of those crazy, let's see what happens. If we go forward, boom, it's going to shear it way more. So we're going to bring that back down. And this is just like the fine tuning, everything that you need in here for making your keyframes look better. So we're going to go ahead and right click after selecting all of these points, and then we're going to go ease in and out, and we're going to smooth them. And now if we watch this go, it's a little bit less rigid. That just helps it to look rubbery. So if we go ahead and do the same thing we just did there, and we get rid of our shear line, and we go ahead and press F for smooth for whatever reason, it's just a little bit extra right there. So that's going to be how you make those zoom in texts. And then once you want them to zoom out, you just have them shear this way and then kind of whoosh off the stage. So once we have it visually how we want it to be, so zoom on, bounce around, right itself, we're going to pop into the edit window, and then we're going to find where it zooms on. So we'll say probably about right there is all right. And then we're going to come into our media pool, and we're going to grab a whoosh sound effect. So I'm going to set this as my out point, set that as my in point with O and I, and then I'm going to go ahead and drag this down beneath. I'm going to turn off snapping with hotkey N. I'm going to move that over just a little bit so that when this comes out, it's going to go whoosh. Because audio works with visuals to tell your brain what is happening. So oftentimes, if there's something that looks like it would be making a sound and it isn't making a sound, you're going to run into more issues. Even if your visuals are right on, if there aren't audio cues to go with it, your brain is going to think that it looks weird. So in the case of this video, adding just that sound effect is going to make this effect look a lot better. So there's that, and then if we disable that sound effect, it just looks like this. Not great. If that popped up on the screen, you'd probably be like, what the heck, that's missing something. And then, final little spice on the top, we're going to go back into Fusion. We are going to grab the correct clip here. We're going to close the spline editor now. We don't need it for this. And we're going to grab our text. We're going to move on over into our settings, and we're going to turn on motion blur. The higher this number is right here, the harder it is for your computer to run. So if you are running on a little bit lower end of a machine, you might want to stick with a lower number. But if your computer can handle it, the higher the number goes, the better your motion blur is going to look. So we're going to go ahead and pop that up to about 20. And then we're going to save just in case anything crashes when we try to run this now. Pop back over here so that we can see it in its full glory. And then once this red bar turns blue, just like that, we're going to watch it again. So you can see there, the motion blur really adds a lot to it. It makes it look a lot less rigid, and that's something that you generally want to go for unless you are looking for something to be rigid, is fluidity. Having things move with a little bit of fluidity is going to make them look a lot better really fast. So if we watch that slowly, you see that the text comes out, it's leaning back because it's going so fast, and then as it starts to slow down to go past its center point, it leans the other way as it gets pulled back and then stands up. So you can see how it kind of moves like a jello. And with that sound effect plus the motion blur, that looks really good. Next, I'm going to show you how to do the impact text that you saw in the intro as well. For that, we're going to go ahead and grab another Fusion composition. We're going to click on this one and we're going to pop into Fusion just like we did before, but we still have the last one selected, so we're going to need to go to Clips up here and then select our newest one. There we go, Media Out. And same deal, we're just going to grab a text node, we're going to hook it into our media out, and we're going to type text. This one though, just for the classic cheese, we're going for impact as our font. We're going to make that really big, and then we are going to start this one off the screen. Pop into layout, keyframe that center position, and then we're going to go ahead, we'll say 12 frames. That might be too slow, but we'll see. And then we're going to move it just ever so slightly past where we want it to be. And then we're going to go 2 frames forward, arrow keys there to move forward, and then we're going to pop it back up into that center point. So if we watch that, boom. Yeah, that's pretty slow, but it'll look different in the edit window. I think I want to accentuate this a little bit more, that bounce. That looks better. Okay, so that's a good start, but it kind of looks like a high school project still. So what are we going to do? We are going to change this up. We're going to do some easing in and some easing out. How are we going to do that? With our spline editor. So we're going to go ahead and grab our path here. We're going to get to a spot where we have actual keyframes. We're going to click one, and we're going to drag that. And then in the spline editor as well, if you go ahead and select a bunch of keyframes, you can actually just move them closer together. So if you want something to happen faster, you can just take a bunch of keyframes all at once and shift them over so that you don't have to go through and re-keyframe each frame, which is really nice. So we're going to zoom in a little bit there, and then so if we take 1 frame forward here, we grab this, and we grab this little handle, we can see that as we move that up, things start to happen. So if we grab all of these, we're going to go ahead, oh, actually, let's get that back to where it was. So with this handle, we can bring that down, and that's going to move this text so that its speed changes as it whips in. So that is going to be too much, because at this point, right before it's in the middle, it's not even on screen yet. So we're going to bring that back up, just like that. So it kind of accelerates its way in. So it's going to come in slow and then really fast as it eases into the finish line there. So you're going to kind of get suggested, and then wham, it's going to land. And then as soon as it lands, we want to have a little bit of like a shake happen, because this is meant to be heavy. So when it lands, we want it to kind of give a little bit of a shake to it. Otherwise, if there's anything behind this text and this thing just slams down in front of it and then everything is completely still, that doesn't look natural. So we're going to add just a little bit of a shake. So as soon as that hits its final point, right at its lowest, we're going to come up here and click on our transform tab again, and then we're going to grab our rotation. In order to slide these sliders slower, you're going to hold control while you slide them, and then you're going to get much more fine-tuned control. So we're going to move it just a little bit, and then we're going to move forward another frame, and we're going to go about back to the middle, but overshoot it just a touch. And then once we're back to the final point, we're going to set that back to 0. And then if we watch this back again, boom, it hits, it wiggles a little bit, and when we add in some sound now and some motion blur, that is going to look much better. So I'm going to take this heavy bass hit that I used for the one earlier, and I'm going to go ahead and drag that down beneath here. And I'm going to lower this volume because this thing is pretty extreme. So we're going to find where this is at its lowest point, that keyframe where it, right before it bounces back up, the one where we started the wiggle. Wham! So as soon as it is there, we are going to have this bass hit happen. So if we go ahead and hit play, boom, just like that. And if we put something behind there, like these color bars, it's going to be hard to read the white text on the white, but we're going to go ahead and play that back. Boom. And that looks way better than if your text was just to come down and hit and not move at all. So finally, I'm going to show you how I made my subscribe button, because it's completely different than the way that we made these two effects. For this, we're going to be working in 3D space. So if you're ready for that, then we'll jump back into Fusion with a new Fusion composition and we'll get started. So we've got our Fusion composition, back into Fusion, and then we're going to need to select our new one again. And then once we're here, we're in our new Fusion composition. You can tell because we have just a media out. You're going to go ahead and grab your media pool up here and then bring whatever you're trying to affect down. For some reason, I'm not sure why, it might be just something simple that I'm not noticing, this doesn't really work with a background node. So if you're trying to use a solid color, I'd recommend getting a solid color, exporting it, and then using that as your media in for this. If anybody knows how to do this with backgrounds, please let me know in the comments down below, because it would be very helpful. So we're going to drag our media in to our media out, and then we're going to slap a rectangle mask on that, and we're going to round out those corners a bit just so it doesn't look too harsh. So we're going to lower our height a bit just because we're going to be using this to call out some text, and it doesn't necessarily need to be huge. That being said, we're going to add the text. It's just going to say text. And then we're going to bring this over here. We're going to drop in a new merge right there. And we're going to drop our text node into our merge. So all of this stuff is going to dictate the way that your button looks and the way that it like feels on the eyes. And then all of the motion is going to come after this. So we're going to select our merge so that whatever we add next gets placed right into this line. And we're going to add an image plane. Now that we have an image plane, we're going to break this line, and once the line is broken, we're going to go ahead and add a 3D merge, or merge 3D, and then a render, and then we're going to click on the merge again, and we're going to add in a camera. So this camera is going to be what dictates our movement for this. So if we go ahead and look, we've got a camera in 3D space, and we've got our image plane right there. So if we grab our camera and then our media out, we will drag this to so we can watch what we're going to be getting here. And then if we drag this, you can see that we get a zoom out effect or a zoom in effect. But for this one, we're going to kind of try to get like a boom arm camera or a helicopter camera, kind of like swoop in effect. So what we're going to do is keyframe the position of our camera, both in translation and in rotation. And then we're going to move it up. And then with this little button here, we're going to rotate it down. And since those things are keyframed, that's going to be saved. So if we want this to last, say, 12 frames, we'll move forward 12 frames. And then we'll go ahead and move this back down. And we'll straighten that back out. And then move it down some more so we can see it. This isn't going to show up choppy like this. It's going to make a smooth movement from where you start it to where you end it. So you can mess around in here as much as you need to get the effects that you're looking for. And then we're going to move that forward so that it kind of gives a zoom effect right at the end there. And then with our keyframes in here, we're going to grab that spline editor again. So we're going to grab our X rotation, and we're going to make that a little bit more smooth there. And then we're going to come back to our original first keyframe. So we're going to smooth this out so that it goes a little bit faster at the beginning and then slows down as we get closer. And then we're going to do the same thing here, but we're going to make it so that it goes above that middle line, which is going to make it pass it just a little bit and then kind of ease back out. So if we watch that real slow, you see that our camera moves down. So there's not enough swooping happening. So on our first keyframe here, we're going to move this back pretty far. which means that we're going to need to move it up again. And if you get to where you can't see both of these things, just know that this is your camera and this is what it's looking at. So we are going to go ahead and tilt this down more. And we can change all these things without worrying about it because we're at the very beginning. So now, if we come through, there's a little bit more of that swoop, but we want to still be able to see it there. So if we come through, we pass it by too much, I would say. So we're going to bring this back below that line, and then keep going, boop, 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 and then swoop it up just like that. And then if we grab all of these, all 3 of these, we're going to go ahead and smooth them. You can do this by swiping over them like this and pressing F. So we're going to bring this back to the beginning. We're going to hit play, and you see that it kind of looked ugly. Yeah, it kind of has like a little secondary hill in there. So we're going to set this back to linear, and then we're going to go ease in and out, and then we've got ease in. So you can think about this as like ease into the finish line and ease out of the gate. I don't remember where I heard that, but it's always helped me to remember that ease out is at the beginning of your keyframe, and then ease in is at the end of it. So if we zoom in on these a little bit, we'll see that our ease out right here for our first keyframe is pretty much straight, so we're going to make that go a little bit faster at the beginning, and then it's going to ease on in right there. So we'll just bring that a little lower, bring that a little lower, kind of like that, and then for the ease out into the next one, we'll do that, and then it's going to just linearly from the bottom come back up. So we'll go ahead and hit play. And it kind of goes whoop, whoom, and then your camera lands right on it. And since your background is transparent, you can put this over top of whatever, and in the edit window, you can change the actual size of this with the transform controls right here. So if you need it to be small, you just go ahead and do that. And then if you want it to pop up in the corner, just go ahead. And then if we watch that, it's gonna swoop in and land right on your screen. And that's looking a little small, so we just make it a little bit bigger, and then you'll see it swoops in just like that. Looks great. So that's going to be it for today's video, helping you guys out a little bit with some motion graphics techniques that you can use for text. You can use these for animations, all sorts of things inside of Fusion. If you want to get more familiar with Fusion, I do have a few other videos that I'll link in the description down below, and they'll be here on the end screen. So go ahead and watch one of those, increase your knowledge of Fusion, and as always, if this helped you out, please let me know in the comments down below, and if there's anything that was unclear for you, please let me know down there as well, because I would love to help you through it and get this figured out for you. So that does it for today's video. I'll see you next Thursday.